Members of the Board of Trustees, Committee on Facilities, Planning and Management, please respond present when you hear your name. Chairperson Brian Obergfell.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Sandra Wilkin.
Present.
Trustee Michael Arvanites.
Present.
Trustee Fernando Ferrer.
Here.
Trustee Charles Shorter.
Present.
Trustee Myra Linares Garcia.
Present.
Professor Jason Young is the faculty representative. No, I don't see him, but I see Professor Kimura, the faculty alternate. Welcome. Maxwell Velakadny, the student rep. Welcome, the new student rep. How are you?
I'm doing well. Present.
Deanna St. Hilaire, who's also the new student alternate. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Present.
And Trustee Picant.
Present.
Terrific. You have a quorum, Brian.
Okay, we have a quorum. The public meeting of the Committee on Facilities, Planning and Management is now called to order. On March 7, 2020, Governor Cuomo issued Executive Order 202, declaring a state of emergency in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. On March 13, 2020, Governor Cuomo issued Executive Order 202.1, which included a suspension of law allowing the attendance of meeting telephonically or other similar service. Article 7 of the Public Offices Law, to the extent necessary to permit any public body to meet and take such actions authorized by law, without permitting in public in-person access to meetings and authorizing such meetings to be held remotely by conference call or similar service, provided that the public has the ability to view or listen to such proceeding and that such meetings are recorded and later transcribed. In accordance with the executive order, this board meeting is being held via video conference with a live stream found at the CUNY Board of Trustees website. We are testing a new closed captioning feature today, which you will see on the bottom of your screens. A copy of the calendar, the agenda, is also available online at the CUNY Board of Trustees website. Additional items may be added during the meeting. As a reminder, please mute your audio so we can ensure that everyone can hear. I would like to ask the secretary to take a roll call attendance from members of the Chancellery.
Hi, okay, so members of the Chancellery, please respond present when you hear your name. Chancellor Felix Matos Rodriguez.
Present.
General Counsel and Senior Vice Chancellor for Legal Affairs, Derek Davis.
Present.
Executive Vice Chancellor and Chief Operating Officer, Hector Batista.
Present.
Dean Sarah Bartlett.
Present.
Saw you somewhere, right? Gustavo Ordonez.
Present.
Scott Burrell.
Present.
And Megan Mulgrew.
Present.
Great.
Thank you, Gail. Now let's turn to the items requiring a vote today. Given that all board members are participating remotely via Zoom and we cannot all see one another, I will announce the resolutions and ask for members to respond only if you would like to abstain or oppose an item. Otherwise, your vote will be recorded as a yes vote. If you are voting no or abstaining, please state your name and vote. Additionally, if you wish to second an item or have any questions, please state your name first for the record, and let's try to avoid speaking over one another. We will take up the following items for approval. Action item 1A, which is the approval of the minutes of the Facilities Planning and Management Committee's meeting of October 5th, 2020. I move the approval of action item 1A. Do I have a second?
For seconds.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? We will now vote. Please only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose.
Maxwell Velakadny, abstain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the motion carries with one abstention. Thank you. I would now like to address action item 1B, the policy calendar. Policy item Policy item B.1 is a resolution to authorize a lease amendment with 5030 Broadway MMS LLC to extend the term of the CUNY in the Heights Center at 530 Broadway, New York, New York. I now call on Executive Vice Chancellor Hector Batista to provide further background on this item.
Thank you, Chairman Overfeld. Since 2011, the CUNY in the Heights Center has operated in 15,000 square feet of lease space on the first floor of 5030 Broadway. In 2017, the board approved an additional 15,000 square feet of space for the CUNY in the Heights Center on the second floor to add classroom support space in order to increase the number of accredited bearing classes. In order to make the elevator AD accessible and elevator connecting to the second floor, we will be installing an elevator. And in order for us to be able to do that, we need to acquire an additional 336 square feet. Now I'd like to turn it over to Meg Mulgrew to give you more information. Meg is the Director of Real Estate and provide more details to the committee.
Thank you all. We're going to be expanding.
Meg, it's hard to hear you.
I'm sorry. We're going to be expanding the size of CUNY in the Heights by an additional 15,000 square feet to allow for Borough of Manhattan Community College to offer more program at the CUNY in the Heights location. Additionally, there will be some programs offered by Ossos Community College at the CUNY in the Heights location.
Okay. Thank you. I move the approval of policy item B1. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, not hearing any questions, comments, or concern. We will now vote. Please only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose. Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Policy item B2 is a resolution to authorize the disposition of Medgar Evers College presidential residence. I now call on Executive Vice Chancellor Hector Batista to further provide background on this item.
Thank you. The university purchased Mega's presidential residence on June 2010 for the personal official use of the President Medgar Evers for $1.5 million. We would like to transfer the presidential residence to CUCF for disposition. CUCF is authorized to provide facilities for use by the university and has the ability to procure and hire residential real estate appraisers and brokers to implement the sale of the property. Upon the disposition of the presidential residence, the president of Medgar Evers will receive housing stipend as provided by the university and other college presidents. Proceeds from the sale, less customary closing costs, will be directed to the university along with documentation necessary to properly disclose the sale of this financial statement. Now I'd like to turn it over to Scott Burrell, General Counsel for CUCF, to give you more details.
So we're asking the board to transfer this to CUCF so CUCF can conduct a disposition process and hire brokers and advisors to conduct a public sale of this presidential residence. Happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Okay, I move the approval of policy item B2. Do I have a second?
Second, United.
Seconds. Any discussion? I have a couple questions. Where is it located exactly? What's the address, if you recall?
I believe it's on Hanson Place, but Scott?
Where are my notes?
It's
Thought I had
One
the
Hanson
address.
Place.
Oh,
And
it's
that is the
place.
old Williamsburg Savings Bank, Brian. in
right. That's,
Downtown,
yeah,
about 2 blocks from Barclays Center.
right.
Thank you,
Right.
Charlie.
You're welcome.
Prime real estate in New Brooklyn.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
What do we think it's worth? Just for the background of the committee members. We'll find.
Meg or Scott or Gustavo, anybody?
We had an appraisal completed in late June of 2020, and the appraisal valuation was $3,090,000.
Wow.
How was that done, Megan? Who
It
was
was-
the appraiser? I'm sorry. We had an appraiser made?
It was A-Team Appraisal, which is a minority.
Sure. No, I know them.
Yeah.
And
And,
they did it in 2020.
It's a recent appraiser, Charlie.
Thank you, Gustavo.
Okay.
and is there I have actually two questions. The timetable for this, and will we be assuring that we will be following Executive Order 15A for any other disposition for brokers with respect to minority, women, and business enterprises?
So Trustee Wilkin, we're proposing to the university to sell this one and the property at College of Staten Island. And we did initially go and try to do an NWB procurement. We found a very good residential broker for College of Staten Island property. We weren't as successful for Brooklyn. And so we're going to try to either redo it or do a regular procurement, since the interest of the university is to dispose of the properties as soon as possible. But that was our first line of defense, and we did procure an MWB for the appraiser.
That's encouraging. Maybe the directory from New York State would be of help to you for certified firms.
We did
And-
use that one, of course.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
this
Charlie.
is Charlie Shorter.
Yeah,
I have 3 questions.
sure.
I guess my fundamental question is why CUNY is divesting itself of assets that are selling in a down market, and whether there was any consideration given or request made to the appraiser to take a look at what the lease value might be, so that we might lease the property until such time as the market turns. That's question number 1. Number 2 is, am I clear that the net proceeds from the sale are going into CUNY's general funds and not directly to the college for its operating or capital budgets? And question number 3 is whether this committee, Facilities Planning Management Committee, will receive information from CUCF prior to any final transaction. That is, we will see the appraised value, we will see all the costs associated, the broker's fee, any of the taxes, any admin fees, as well as, which will give us a full knowledge of the net proceeds from the sale, from the appraised sale. And I'm wondering whether we would also know, or perhaps you know now, what the stipend that is given to the college for the president will be, because that obviously comes off the net proceeds from an actual sale. So those are my 3 questions. My biggest question is number 3, and that is whether this committee will see the actual transaction document before it's executed.
So,
sorry.
I mean, my point is that the committee will know what the net sale proceeds will be before it goes to market.
So Charlie, you're asking if the committee will have the appraisal to review, and then you'd like to see the contract of sale before it's,
No,
no?
no, it doesn't have to be that detailed. Would like to know what the appraised value is. We know it's a qualified firm, but what I would like the committee to see is what was the appraised value? What was it put on the market for? And what are the costs going to be associated with the actual sale? Doesn't have to be the contract. We would know if the sale price is, let's say, 2.5 million, we would be able to know what the broker's fees are, what the appraiser's cost would be, and any other costs. And I would also like to know what the stipend is that the college is going to get for the presidential residence, which obviously impacts net fees. So it doesn't have to be all the contract, but a single sheet that tells us what the information is.
All right,
for the sale.
Hector?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to let the chancellor handle the presidential stipend question, because I think that's part of a presidential, if I understood the question correctly, that's part of the contract when, so I'll let the chancellor handle that part of it, and then we'll handle the other parts.
So the stipend that goes for the presidents is set by the board. So it's a standard, my understanding is that it's $5,000 a month. And that is set up by Board of Trustees guidelines. There's one for the presidents of community colleges, that's one set, and then one for the presidents of four-year and professional graduate schools. And that, which will the one that we applying to Medgar, is $5,000 a month.
Okay, and Hector, regarding Charlie's other questions, please?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to turn it over to Gustavo, and then I'll add color to it. Gustavo?
So happy to answer, Charlie. We anticipate 2 to 4, and we're going to, of course, try to beat the broker down on the commission percent on whatever the purchase price is. And probably maybe some miscellaneous, such as a title report. We, of course, are not, just to make sure that we provide clean title, and I'm sure the purchasers council is going to require it.
Sure.
That's probably, $800, $1,000. But basically, that's going to be the universe of costs. Of course, CUCF will do this for no fee. The procurement that we are undertaking, it's for the benefit of the university, and that is in essence the universe of costs that the university that will be deducted from the purchase price. Everything else we will direct, not even the proceeds, direct from the closing to be directed via wire transfer to the university.
To the university.
Absolutely.
I guess what I'm saying would be, in my mind, it would be important for the board's committee overseeing this to know what the net proceeds are prior to an actual sale transaction.
So you would like
everything you're talking about, Gustavo, taking the sale price, taking out the broker fee, whether it's 4% or 5%, appraisal fee, all the other standard closing costs, which I do understand. We should know what the net number is that's going to market prior to any transaction.
But it's hard to know what the net value going to market, because we have to post it in the market, and we're going to do it in the public procurement requires certain things. Of course, we're going to do the multiple listing service, right? That's how residential real estate gets published and sold in New York City. And so we will know what the listing price is, and we'll be happy to tell the committee what the listing price that we're going to go out. And then I guess it depends on the offers coming in, right? The offer, if I understand your question, you want to have a notice once we accept an offer, what that offer is, and all the closing costs, so that the university understands what the net proceeds are going to be delivered at sometime in the closing, once the contract is negotiated and a closing occur. If that's the case,
before the closing.
Before the
Everything
closing.
you said up to that, before the closing.
Look, I think, Charlie, that I think that once we're able to nail down a buyer, we will, before that closing takes place, I think it's a perfectly fine thing for us to bring this to the board and give you a layout, what the proceeds are, what other costs are, and just give you a one pager. It seems like a perfectly reasonable
That's fine. That's all
request.
that's all
So,
I'm asking, and I would offer an amendment to the resolution that says we would approve it subject to receiving that information prior to an actual transaction. And the same would apply to the College of Staten Island.
the only thing that I would ask, and I don't know if this is, I'll defer this to the general counsel just to make sure. Because our board meetings are sometimes not as consistent as they are, if we happen to have a buyer and we got a time frame and it doesn't coincide with the board committee meeting, is there a way, and I would defer this to the general counsel and Gail, right? Is there a way for us to bring this to this body? Circumventing whatever timeline that is, if that's the right word. So we could not lose that sale, because clearly, there's a time.
Well, I would think that would be up to the chair.
Yeah,
It's very
to the
simple
chair
procedure.
and the general counsel, I just don't know.
I fully understand Charlie's, I think it's a very reasonable request.
100%.
And it applies probably to the Staten Island sale too. We just have to be careful. We don't want to micromanage, our staff there, but at the same time, it is a reasonable request. So I suppose, I'm just thinking, Gail, I'm not really that familiar what protocol is if we had to
You could call an emergency committee meeting if you wanted.
We could. Okay, fine. So Charlie, that's what we will do when we have a contract. We have an offer and we have an unexecuted contract. So we know exactly, so everybody, and we'll just issue a term sheet, which is a summary.
Great. Fine.
And then we can all discuss it and just make sure we're all on board. Does that work for everybody?
Can I suggest another way of doing it? I think
Sure.
your concern is to sell below market. I think that was one of your first questions.
That's a separate question. Even if the market were fine, I would think as a trustee, I would like to know what we were selling it for and the terms and the net proceeds prior to approval.
Understood.
Whether it's
yes, then we will do so.
I think what the chair is recommending, it sounds reasonable, as long as we could, as Gail stated, we could have this meeting where, we will comply with your request, and I think it's
Right,
perfectly.
you only need 24 hours for an emergency meeting. So,
Perfect.
and that should work out fine.
Perfect.
Fine. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments on this?
I have one more little comment.
Sure.
And it is a comment, not a question. And perhaps you've corrected this already. On line 2 of the actual resolution, which has 2 paragraphs, line 2, it has designated, and I think they mean designate.
Okay.
Designate.
Yeah. I don't have that in front of me, but if in fact it's incorrect, we will correct it.
That's very simple.
Yeah.
We will review it, Charlie, and correct it if necessary. Thank you for pointing it out.
Hang on, Charlie, where are you? I have it right here. Where are you?
I'm in the first paragraph of the resolution itself, line 2.
The whereases?
No, in the resolution.
In the actual resolution part, resolve that, and you're in the second one?
No, line 2.
Line 2. Designee. Yep, not his designed. That's a typo. Yep. Thanks, Charlie.
Simple.
Yep, very. Done.
Oh, all right, we will now vote.
Hey,
Mr.
sorry,
Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, excuse me. do these sales fit into a longer-term strategy to divest ourselves of all the president's housing?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So this will
CUNY
happen.
With a caveat. So the only, the only, and this is something that we discussed in the strategic conversation with the board about the route to sort of maximize some of our real estate assets. And the only two properties that will remain would be the ones that are currently being used by presidents, the one at Brooklyn College that President Anderson is, and then the one at Baruch for President David Wu. In the case of Staten Island, we already have had a conversation with President Fritz, and he's amenable. He's there now. He's going to be moving out shortly. So we'll eliminate most of them, and the one in Baruch is one that I would argue that maybe strategically we don't want to keep down the line, but that's something that we would face, when and if there's a vacancy at Baruch. But for the most part, the overall answer to your question, Trustee Ferrer, is yes, with those two caveats, because we do have presidents that were either living or accepted the offer before we move ahead with this.
Thank you. There are two that I think are currently or maybe currently unoccupied. I know Lehman is empty.
And so is Queens.
That's right.
But they have separate. And I'll have Hector can talk to that. They sort of have separate histories, so we're going to deal with them separately. But it is also moving in the same direction, Trustee Ferrer.
Oh, as long as they're moving in the same direction.
They are.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, since Trustee Ferrer has brought it up, my first question was sale versus lease. And I think everybody on this committee knows that owners of real estate in New York City don't sell, they long-term lease. And I know we need the revenue, but I thought philosophically we were going to maximize assets immediately and over time. Anyway, I don't think that's probably a discussion here, but I'm concerned that we are divesting ourselves of our assets in absolute sale. It's like Columbia selling Rockefeller Center.
Well, I will say Staten Island might not necessarily adhere to that, just because it is a private residence, a detached home.
I can't hear you, Michael.
I'm sorry. The real estate market on Staten Island is actually pretty good for detached single-family homes.
It absolutely
so I don't believe that applies to the Staten Island residents. I don't know enough about the Medgar Evers residents to try.
The only thing I was saying. The only thing I was saying. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I said the only thing I would say to Charlie's question, and we can have a long conversation about this. I mean, I think you separate. I would separate the residential housing from our regular assets, and this committee is going to get an asset evaluation, in terms of air rights and other things that we're looking at, right? Is that, because of the way we're set up, being in the residential business is not an area that I think CUNY will do well, and being in the rental business of residential property. And furthermore, in order for us to be able to rent some of these properties, if I talk about the Queens College property, even Staten Island and Lehman, we have to put a lot of money into those properties. So in some ways, at a time when we're struggling with, getting the necessary resources to deal with our own sort of facilities, this is probably not a great investment for the university. And we could do this as a part of a larger discussion, but I mean, I think those are the reasons. And I think in the past, we have gotten rid of presidential housing. So it's not uncommon for us to sort of go down this path that we laid out.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, we will now vote. Please only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose. Hearing none, it carries unanimously. Policy item B3 is a resolution to authorize the disposition of the College of Staten Island presidential residence. I now call on Executive Vice Chancellor Hector Batista to provide further background on this item.
In 1999, on behalf of the university, DASNY purchased this presidential residence for $960,000 for personal and official use by the president of College of Staten Island. We would like DASNY to transfer CIS presidential residence to CUCF so that CUCF can coordinate and manage the sale of this residence. Upon the disposition of the residence, the president of CSI will receive housing stipend as provided by the university and that provides to other college presidents. Proceeds of this sale, less customary closing costs, will be directed to the university along with the necessary documentation to properly disclose the sale of this financial property. Now, I would now like to turn it over to Scott Burrell, General Counsel, CUCF, to provide more details. Scott?
So the plan on the CSI residence is substantially similar to what we just discussed about Medgar Evers, with the only difference being that the property is currently owned by DASNY rather than CUNY. So we would request DASNY transfer the property to us. We've had several preliminary discussions with DASNY to see if there's any roadblocks or hurdles to such a transfer. And we haven't, they haven't found any, and we haven't found any. So they're waiting for us to give them the go ahead to start the transfer process.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Will that transfer involve a consideration?
This question, it's a good question, Freddie. Here's the situation, and I don't know. This is something that's going to come up as we start figuring out what to do with the commercial real estate portfolio. Many of our holdings title is held by DASNY. I'm not sure. I've asked this question and no one's really been able to give a definitive answer. I thought I was told once that if DASNY holds title on some of these properties, there's a reverter to, and what I mean by reverter is that if we go to sell it, title reverts back to New York City. But it's a good question, Freddie. Could anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. It is our understanding that there's no consideration to transfer of the DASNY to CUCF. I don't know if Gustavo or Scott have any additional information for the board.
Sure.
There's also no reverter on this property. So because of the way it was acquired, there isn't a reverter issue on it. And to confirm what, that statement, when we talked to DASNY, they would just deed it to us without any consideration.
Okay.
The reason why DASNY held the title was because we thought we might have to improve it with bonds, which we never did. And so it was put into the DASNY program. And so now they would do quick claim back to us for no consideration.
Good. Well, what about, okay, we'll save this when we get into a larger discussion on the disposition or leasing of the commercial property. I had this discussion and I'm not so sure DASNY, if we go to sell or net lease some of our larger properties, DASNY is going to be quite so cooperative. I could be wrong, but let's just save that for another day.
Yeah, can I just want to add one thing? I think our general counsel has been doing some work in this particular area. So at some
Okay.
point, we will be able to come back to you and give you some information, unless Derek wants to add anything at this point in time.
Well, suffice it to say that yes, there are certain restrictions on these properties.
Right.
And navigating how we will relieve ourselves of these restrictions is a little bit delicate. We are going to seek independent counsel to give us a reasoned opinion as to the interpretation of the memoranda and the law as it applies to these properties, but we are confident that we will get to that point so that we can leverage their value for the benefit of the mission of the university.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it too, Derek, that it's a little bit complicated. It's not going to be
not straightforward at all.
No. Okay. I move the approval of policy item B3. Do I have a second?
For seconds.
Second.
Thank you, Freddie. Okay, do we have any further discussion on this? Questions, concerns?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Michael.
You should know that this property is actually quite different than most of the other properties that we have, and it's actually nowhere near the existing campus. It used to be very close to the former campus, which is now the Trustees Educational Complex. So I think it's a good first step for us to move forward with moving on with the property, and I appreciate and commend Dr. Fritz for being willing to facility. I would like to, before Charlie stole all my thunder, talk about how we should see all the closing costs and et cetera that you guys have already agreed to. But also, I'd like to see if there's a way that the college, First Meg Drivers for their residents and Staten Island for their residents, could see some of the benefits of that proceed.
Okay. It might be just me, but I'm having a little. You're breaking up a little bit. Do you think you could repeat yourself? I'm sorry. Did everybody else hear him clearly?
Yeah, I think he stated that he'd like to see the some of the proceeds of the sale of his properties. Some of it go to CSI.
Correct.
I think that's the heart of what he was.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Hector.
And Medgar Evers, Maxwell Cotney.
I'm sorry, pardon me. Could you say it again?
Sorry, and he also Maxwell Cotney. He also said, respectively to Medgar Evers College as well for their proceeds as well, not just.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry, my battery's dying.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think that's really a question that has to go to the board. So we will have to take that issue up. Hector, maybe you and Phalo could discuss that a little bit. I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. And I don't know what our policy is. So maybe we could get some clarification on that before we do either of these sales. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, and we've been discussing that, and obviously I think the general idea would be that most of the proceeds would go to the general fund of the university, but you might make an allocation to those campuses under the rationale that there were maintenance and funds used by those campuses over the years to sometimes upkeep the facility. So we'll be happy to look at those options and come back to the board with our thoughts on that, and then have a conversation.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chancellor.
Thank you, Phalo. Okay. Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, we will now vote. Please only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose.
I have one quick question, Mr. Chair. Sorry. This will be subject to the same conditions as the prior resolution with Medgar Evers. We will see the transaction numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Is that, Hector, that's definitely doable, right?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So we will now vote. Only respond if you would like to abstain or oppose. Carries unanimously. With no more items on the agenda, I move to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Maxwell Codney, second.
Do,
The meeting is adjourned. Everybody have a nice holiday.
You as
You
well.
too,
Thanksgiving.
everybody.
You too.
Happy
And
You too.
a